I never know when it starts. Did it ding?
Yes.
It didn't ding for me, but okay. Okay. I see that's the problem. Is sometimes it dings and then I don't see it. So yeah, so I'm just figure waiting. All right. So welcome back. I'm Bonnie and this is Angular Nation. And today we have Igor Minar and we're very excited. We're always excited to hang out with Igor Minar. And so Igor and I were talking and we didn't schedule a topic or anything. Everybody's been curious to see what Igor's what's going on with Igor, what's next for Igor. We don't know, and I don't know if he'll tell us anything. But we're just hanging out, talking, and seeing what Igor's been up to lately. How are you, Igor?
I'm great. I'm great. Thanks for having me. How is
Thanks for
everybody here?
coming. I love the cozy format. We've got Matthias and Anna, Tom and Ronan and Rob, and we'll probably have a few more people joining. But we're just hanging out, just talking, see what's going on.
Yeah, that's great. That's great.
Uh, I wanted to ask you. Well, first, I wanted to ask you if you have anything you want to update, like what's going on. So we know that you just left the Angular team, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
How crazy is that? Do you feel like you're just like ready to go to Disneyland, or it's like this weight lifted off your shoulders? What are you doing? Do you know?
Oh, I know what I'm doing. Well, it's not true that I always know what I'm doing, but I know what I'm doing now. Um, has weight been lifted from my shoulders? Yes and no. It's definitely nice not to have to worry about releases and stuff, but I'm still very much in touch with the team and helping here and there where I can. We'll see how much uh, help they'll need because we have such amazing people on the team that I'm hoping that they'll just take it from here on and just do great things, and only when they really need me they come. But I told them my doors are always open, so I'm here to help, and as much as I can I will.
That's so cool. And
And
you've been traveling.
I've been traveling, yes.
You went to
Which
NGBE. You saw Jurgen and Pete and my Clad Key. How crazy was
I
that?
know, it was
I
so
was
good.
having so much FOMO, Igor.
Oh, it was so great. And you know what? Like the crazy thing is that, and this is, I don't want to make it sound like a bad thing, but I had to quit Google to make it to NGBE because as a Googler,
That's dedication.
we were not allowed to travel for safety reasons. And
So
there's like,
now we know the real reason.
right. So yes, yes, I quit Google so that I can make it to NGBE.
That's a party.
Yeah.
That's funny.
No, that just the timing. I had to get the timing just right to actually be able to make it to Europe at this time because COVID is crazy and Google's being very careful and protective of the employees. So we have all kinds of policies about travel and stuff, and we're not allowed to travel to events at the moment for a good reason. For a good reason.
Yeah,
But I
for sure.
really wanted to make it to NGP. I've been trying to get there for years and years, and I never like since 2015.
You were there for the first one, right?
I was there for the first one, and that was a crazy one because that's where I announced Angular 4 6 months after, or no, 3 months after Angular 2 was released.
And
And
everybody said, "What happened at 3?"
what happened to 3, right? So that is actually a crazy story of how that presentation all happened because we built it on the spots together. You were not there, Bonnie, the first year, were you?
No, I wasn't. I didn't even
Yeah.
have a passport, I think, yet at that point.
Oh, yeah, because I see.
Yeah.
Um,
Once I went, then I kept going,
okay.
but I think I missed the first one. I might have. I don't know if I went for the second one or the third one, but it's good times.
Yeah, because that the Angular 4 presentation, it was literally built there after speakers dinner. I just pulled a bunch of people into a room. I was like, "Hey, I would like to announce these things. I don't know how to do it. Can you help me get the messaging right?"
I think Jurgen mentioned that he was helping you with that. He's
Yes, he
so
did.
fun.
Yeah, yeah. It was Xenia and Jürgen and a whole bunch of other people, and Pascal was there, Pascal Precht, and I was just looking at the photos the other day. And I was like, that was a crazy
And
story.
Carmen.
Carmen was there too.
I
Yes,
love
sure.
Carmen.
Well, everybody loves Carmen.
Right.
Uh, so yeah, so that was and ever since 2015, I've been trying to make it back. And And
Was it worth
I
it? Was it
oh,
worth the sacrifice, Igor?
absolutely, absolutely. It was so much fun. It was great to see everybody, and I love Jürgen, and I love many of the core team members there, Sam and Xenia and a bunch of other,
Senia.
yeah, so many others.
Yeah.
So it's been just great to be able to be back and hang out, and I intentionally didn't want to do a presentation because I knew that I would be announcing that I was leaving from Google. So I gave heads up to the organizers. I was like, "Hey, will you still have me even after I quit?" And they're like, "Yeah, just come in. Don't worry about anything. We'll have you no matter what." So
It's not
I,
goodbye. I was
yeah,
very
yeah,
happy when you said you were leaving, but you weren't leaving the community. Like you're not going away. You're
right.
just, getting a new job. So when you're not like leaving or saying goodbye or anything, because a lot of people are very attached to you. So that was good news for us.
Yeah, and this community and the team is just like a family to me. So it's very difficult to leave, and you can't just like quit and close the door and just be like, "Screw you, bye."
No, you get to keep in touch. It was too long in my life before I realized, because when I was younger, I would just hang out with the people that I worked with, and my friends were my coworkers. But as I got older, like I changed jobs and lost touch with people, and I
Mhm.
started to be more intentional about people that I wanted to keep in touch with as I went through life. So you get to keep your favorite people,
Yes,
and that's nice.
absolutely. So what should
So
we
let's
talk about today?
Well, I actually had something. We mentioned it a while back, and I wanted to bring it up again. I hope that's okay with everybody. And obviously, I'm going to open it up for questions and discussion because I really want you to meet my friends. I don't know if you've talked to Ronan yet. Ronan's super cool. Oye,
Oh yeah.
but I want you to be able to talk to my friends too. But there was something. This was actually probably my very first experience with Igor Minar. I mean, I knew who you were, but I didn't actually know you or anything about you really. But it was a conference a long time ago, and it might have been the first or second conference where I saw you when you led us through a guided meditation. And I mentioned that before, and I was hoping that you would do that for us because, and I know you guys might think I'm crazy, but listen, I thought whenever he was doing this guided meditation, and he says, everybody like close your eyes and go through this. And I was like, what are we doing? Like, where there's like, picture like 1,000 of us sitting all in a room together, and he's like, everybody close your eyes, and we're like, what? This is weird. What's going on? And I didn't really. I mean, it was really interesting, but I had to be exposed to the idea several more times before, because for a long time I was just like, I'm just sitting here thinking about all the things that I could be doing right now, and it doesn't seem like it's helpful.
Mhm.
But listen, this concept actually later, when it stuck in my brain and I actually understood the importance of and the power of meditation, then years later, after Igor did this thing at the conference, years after that, I went through a divorce. I moved from the United States to Europe, and I went through like these big changes in my life and my career. And it really helped me a lot to get through that in a keep my inner peace and sanity and stuff like that. So it actually really became a very important part of my life. And so that's why I wanted to circle back and see, how would you feel, Igor? I don't want to put you on the spot. You don't have to, but I think it would be, I mean, it was really helpful for me, and I would never have done that. And
Okay.
I don't want to like hold everybody hostage, but how do you guys feel?
Yeah, how do
Tom,
people
Ronan,
feel?
Rob, are you guys okay with this?
Sure, yeah, no problem.
Yeah, go
I'm
for it.
not, I'm not an expert meditator, but I do it every now and again to find it helpful.
Yes. Anna says yes. See? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, we can do it. So I'm not a trained uh, guide for these things, but we can do something short, and we'll see how it goes.
Okay.
As Jürgen says, it's going to be perfectly imperfect. That was the theme of NGB, because with the coronavirus, everything was crazy, and it was just perfectly imperfect. So let's just look back just a little bit about the background of meditation and why we think it's important. The thing that convinced me was that um, with Angular and work and life, there's always so many stressful situations in our lives, and sometimes it's hard to deal with it. And I've been looking for answers of how to cope with the situations better, and I came across meditation as one of the tools. And it always like sounded like this crazy nonsense hippies thing. I was like, that's not going to work. But the thing that really convinced me was that there's actually a lot of science, and more science is popping up every year, that meditation actually helps change how the brain works. And there's a whole neuroscience field that it looks into cognitive behavioral therapy. And if you go to therapists today, like, meditation is a big part of it. They prefer that over medications and other stuff now. And it all comes down to breathing. The thing that all these scientists and all these gurus and all these people that have been doing meditation for a long time, what they notice is that through meditation, we can actually control our brain in a way that we didn't realize we could. And you can affect the whole, I don't have the right terminology for it, but just the way your body works. Because there is the part of your body that you can control with your mind, and there is part of the body that is just autonomous and just works on its own. And through meditation, you can actually affect the autonomous part. And it all comes down to breathing and focusing on your breath, and that's what meditation is all about. And then you have different kinds of this meditation. You can do yoga, which is always, people think it's stretching, but it's really just breathing. Like, the stretching is this other things that is bundled with breathing, but it's really breathing. And there are other things that you can experiment with, but it all comes down to breathing. So the focus of meditation is just center your thoughts on your breath and see if you can focus just on breathing and nothing else. And what you'll notice is extremely difficult to not think about anything else, because thinking about your breathing is just so boring. And many people complain meditation is boring. But that's the point. The point is to just be okay with it and just go with the flow. So what we can do is just try breathing together for 1 minute, and you just try to notice if you get distracted. And I can guarantee you that you will. It's just some thoughts will pop up and you will start thinking about it. And that's okay. Don't get angry at yourself, because everybody goes through this, and just return your attention back on the breath and just focus on breathing in and breathing out. And then eventually you get distracted again, and then you just focus back on breathing. And that's it. It's very simple, very boring, but beautiful at the same time. So can we try it? Okay, let's do it. So just find a comfortable spot. You should be hopefully upright. You can lie down as well. Don't sleep. It happens. It does happen that you fall asleep. So just find a comfortable spot, and try to be upright. That helps. And take a deep breath. You can breathe in with your mouth and breathe out through your nose. Now try to take a deep breath through your nose and breathe out through your mouth. Now you can close your eyes if you haven't yet, and just breathe through your nose and just follow your breath in and then out. And if you get distracted, just focus back on the breath and don't worry about distractions. Just let them go. And if you feel like it, you can slowly open your eyes.
It's so peaceful.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when we did this at NGConf, it was strange in the beginning, but after a few minutes and like everybody started opening their eyes, and I was like, I really feel so much calmer. It's like, oh wow, that was really nice, and it was a nice feeling. And then I tried to do it again on my own, and it just was, I was like sitting there. But the headspace, because I kept hearing about meditation, and it was just, do you guys feel like totally Zen? I was going to recommend the Headspace app too. That was really helpful. Go ahead, Rob.
I did feel like as I concentrated on the breathing, it's like my body was like getting like loose, right? Like I was feeling like, it's like I'm not thinking about anything else but the breathing, so I can feel the breath going inside my body and coming out, and it's like my body was not there, in a sense, something like that. So
It's really strange doing it in a room with 1,000 people sitting all around you. It was cool though. And the thing is, I like, it was very peaceful, and it like made me feel very calm and peaceful and zen, and I liked that because I really needed more of that feeling in my life. But later, once because I struggled with, like, I'm just sitting here and I'm like waiting for the 10 minutes to be up, right? But when I found the Headspace app and I actually started doing more guided meditation, what I found, it took me weeks of doing it every day, that eventually what I found was because I don't know about you guys, but apparently it's very common, definitely for me, that a lot of people struggle with invasive thoughts. So maybe, especially like if you're trying to fall asleep at night, you could think about things basically everything you're stressed about, right? If somebody said something that hurt your feelings, or there's something you're worried about in the future that you don't know, if you're going to get the job or whatever, anything like that. So you just think about everything that you're worried about, and it's stressful. But I never knew my whole life until I started meditating that I get to decide what I want to think about. I didn't know that I could just turn it off until I started. Meditating helped me so much with that I could just quiet that and say, I'm not going to think about that right now, at least not for the next 10 minutes. I'm not going to think about anything. And I didn't know that was even a possibility. And then once I started actually successfully clearing my head and just focusing on my breathing, the strangest thing happened. Like, these really good ideas or solutions would just like violently jump into my head. And I'm like, I didn't even, like, it was like the answer was like, I forgot, like, oh my goodness, I need to call somebody, or I need to follow up, or oh my gosh, I just figured out how to solve that problem. And it was just like, as soon as I sit quietly and clear my brain would just like, it was crazy. So that really helped me understand the importance of meditating, because I made some big decisions actually through meditation, and it just seemed so clear, like things I'm stressed about something, and then I would just meditate and just calm, and then the answer just pops into my head. But listen, you have to meditate for weeks and practice before you get to that point, because the first couple of weeks I was like, are we done yet? But it really got to be very powerful. And I just want to say thank you again, Igor, because I never would have even I thought meditating people were like weirdo, like astrology people, or I don't know. I didn't ever consider
Right.
that was an important thing. So thank you for introducing me. Thank you for introducing us.
Yeah, thank you for giving me opportunity to share this. I learned about meditation through Google. There was actually this whole program developed at Google for people to help cope with stress and anxiety. That was called.
Coping with stress at Google.
No, wait, hold on. Oh, see, I quit Google now. I forget all these things. What was it called? Search Inside Yourself. That it's actually named by the book. So there's a book called Search Inside Yourself, and it used to be a 2-week course, and then they changed it to a week course. And by the time I took it, it was a 3-day course, and I still felt like it was the best 3 days of breathing, and like 3 days that Google invested into me to just breathe. And it had such a payoff for years and years. So I highly recommend it to many others. And now there are so many applications like Headspace you mentioned. There are many others that just help you, guide you through the process. And often you can take these courses in just like 3 minutes a day. It doesn't need to be, some people meditate for 2 hours a day. And I don't have time for that. Maybe once I retire, but it really takes just a few minutes every day. And your brain actually starts to change. Like they have MRI scans of brains before and after training, meditative training, and the shape and the connections in the brain change, which is fascinating.
And I do normally only meditate a few minutes at a time, but there have been times actually when I was overwhelmed, or if I had a big decision that I was struggling with, or if I went through big life changes that, we all do sometimes, that it actually was really helpful for me to have some time to, like, I one time just sat and meditated for like 45 minutes and was just breathing. And it was because I needed it, because I had stressful stuff going on, and I just needed to just be quiet for a while. And it was really, really helpful for me. So
yeah, I know.
And Igor, you've got a whole bunch of, you're like starting a new beginning. So you should have a long session. And you give me enough advice. I could give you back a little bit.
Okay, perfect. Should we talk about some tech stuff?
You guys want to talk about tech?
I don't know. What do people want to talk about?
Let's just open it up. What do you guys want to? Anybody have questions, comments, advice?
Yeah, well, I guess I have a question just on your thoughts on the future of progressive web apps and why they haven't taken. I would have thought they would have taken off a bit more than they seem to have. Or do you think the browsers are going to catch up?
Yeah, I do think that progressive web apps are the way to go. Right now, most of the challenges we have are not technical. There are still things, some APIs and stuff that we need to add to the web platform to make it competitive, fully competitive with native applications. The biggest challenge is political at this moment. You have all of these big companies that are fighting over influence and fighting over developers, and unfortunately, the web is being held hostage. At least that's my take. The web is being taken hostage, and things are improving, and different browser vendors are filling in various gaps. But until we have decent enough feature parity across all of the major browsers, all of the major platforms, PWAs will be just somewhat useful, but they're increasingly more useful. Like, Microsoft has done a very bold move a couple of years ago when all of the Microsoft App Store apps, if you had a PWA app, that was automatically included in the App Store for the Microsoft platform, which is pretty bold. I think we need more of that and more of such a acceptance. Google has done amazing things with PWA. Apple is doing great things for users, but not necessarily for the web, as far as I can tell. Safari is currently not the most user-friendly browser out there, but it's heavily used, and it's holding the whole web back. Sometimes there are good reasons for it. Sometimes it just seems like a political move. So we'll see how that develops.
So Safari becoming the new IE?
Yes. However, it's also important to acknowledge that web is an open platform, and you cannot have just Chrome or just Edge decide what the future of web looks like. It needs to be a collaborative effort. But for collaboration to work, you need all the parties to engage, all the major players to engage. And I don't want, and my personal take here is that Safari team is actually trying hard to do the right thing. They're just not funded at the level where they could implement all the things that we would need them to implement, and that is a political decision, in my opinion. That's how it is.
Do you think it
It
was
would be
a
great
good?
for us if they all collaborated.
Yeah,
Go
but
ahead,
again,
Ronan.
like, we should keep in mind, like, I see all of these blog posts and tweets from various people about how Safari is terrible and the WebKit team is doing a horrible job. I don't think the problem is the WebKit team, because they are doing what they can do given the resources available to them, the amount of investment available to them. And I saw a lot of this on the Angular side, where the community wanted certain features and we were just not staffed to deliver on those features, even though I believe that they were the right thing. But if you just don't have the support from the company that funds the project, then you just cannot get certain things done. And the worst thing that you can see, the most hurtful thing that you can see, is when your own users are then blaming you for certain things that you have no control over.
This is something you know something about.
What did you think about Microsoft switching from, was it Chakra to Chromium for Edge?
I think it was a very bold move. I was not involved in any of the discussions between Google and Chrome, so I don't Google and Microsoft, so I don't know any of the insider information. But I thought it was a very bold move, and it was the right move for Microsoft, because they were not competitive, and sometimes it's good to have multiple implementations of a spec, because that makes the spec stronger. But if you have too much legacy, and it's very difficult to make things fully compatible with the spec, and you just keep on diverging, or if you're not capable of keeping up with the spec evolution, then move that the Edge team did, where they decided to build Edge on top of Chromium, seemed like a good move to me. What do you think about it?
I remember I was reading some articles online, and like there was a lot of people saying, it's good to have more variations out there so it can be competitive, rather than, this open source library Chromium that Google maintains. So Google has a lot of power over the entire web.
Mm-hmm.
So I can kind of see both sides, but like no one really liked Edge because there was so many issues. So I think it was probably a good thing, but I think Microsoft probably need more control over the Chromium project. They need to be able to guide it. So I don't know how that works. Like,
Yeah, I don't know much about the whole governance and how the responsibilities are split up. But what I have seen is major contributions from the Edge team back into WebKit that Chrome and Chromium are benefiting from. The whole I forget NG, table NG, and a bunch of other very deep internal projects that have been rebuilt. Microsoft has made major contributions in that space, and the whole web now benefits from it, including Google and Chrome. So that is amazing to see.
Yeah, like I think there's an element where, if one project is inferior, another project's really popular and amazing, then maybe if everyone moves to the more popular one, but they all have a certain amount of control, that's a good thing. Like, what would happen if Apple switch to Chromium, but then they started adding loads of stuff to it. Maybe that'd be a good thing. And then you have lots of different versions of Chromium that kind of are all similar.
Mm-hmm. If the governance model is set up in a way that is supportive of collaboration, and there is a reason and safety that all these big players feel in collaborating on this browser or the core of the browser, then that's great. Because one thing that I see in the web community that is holding us all back is all this fragmentation, where you have React and Angular and Vue and the higher level, and then on a lower level you have Edge and Chromium and Firefox and Brave and all of these other browsers. So you have all this fragmentation, all these people competing, and I do think that the competition is good up to a certain point. But once you cross over a certain point, then you are just diluting the amount of engineering power you have available. And the thing that we should keep in mind is that our biggest threat is not React or Vue or Edge or Brave or whoever is the competitor in the field. Our biggest threat is closed platforms that are out there that are holding informations behind walled gardens. That is the biggest threat, and that's, I'm hopeful that over time we can unite more. And one of the crazy thoughts I had is, there are many ways to implement a web framework, but there are some core primitives that are shared and currently re-implemented from scratch in all of these. And not only re-implemented, but also researched and redesigned. And maybe we could come up with a set of primitives that are not yet ready to be fully standardized, like data binding. I don't think data binding should be standardized yet, because we don't know what we are doing. I've been doing data binding for 12 years, and I still, every year or every other year, we come up with another way to do data binding. So I think it will be a mistake to standardize it in the web platform. But I think it would make sense to create a data binding layer, or at least a design, even if it's not a single implementation, design that is researched across Vue, React, Angular, and then implemented possibly multiple times, because often the implementation details are so framework specific that doing it just once and reusing it everywhere, I'm not sure if that would work. Maybe, I don't know. But at least the research and the design could be done together and then shared across all of these. So I am hopeful that in the future we'll see more of this unification and less fragmentation, because there are much bigger fish out there that we should be worried about, and not our friendly competitors.
So all the frameworks are it's just prototyping for a new web standard. A really long
it's essentially yes. Like, the framework authors could do all the research necessary and then prove it through multiple implementations. And few years later, if everybody's happy with this, that could become a standard, or at least a spec for the standard.
Yeah. Do you kind of see that with TypeScript and stuff like that, where something gets so popular that it becomes considered to be put into the web standard for JavaScript?
I don't know. I think one thing that would not hurt is to extend ECMAScript to natively support types, the syntax, without the semantics. And this might be too naive, because often in order to support certain semantics, you actually need syntax affordances, like generics. You can just say, like, if you want to support generics, you need syntax for generics in some form. But how exactly they behave, that could be up to various interpretations and implementations. So I don't know if we should just take TypeScript as is and standardize it, because I'm sure if you talk to the TypeScript team today and ask them, would you change anything big in TypeScript? I can guarantee you that they'll give you a list of 10 things that have been bugging them for years, but it's too late. They cannot change it. Because that would be too major of a change. But if you ask them what are the things from, like, what is the subset of TypeScript that you would feel confident standardizing, I think a major chunk of the syntax could be easily standardized. And then, we could have various type checkers that would implement that syntax. And the biggest benefit, honestly, would be that we wouldn't need to strip types in order to load the code into the browser and run it. Because to run the code, you don't need the types. The types are there just to verify that the code seems correct. So if we could get TypeScript loaded in the browser and it would just work, that would be already a major win for everybody. Now, the type checking could happen by tools that are built independently.
Could that?
I always feel like when I have projects that get really big and they have all this scope creep, and then I end up with all this code, and then I'm like, I wish I could go back to the beginning and know everything that I know now, and then redo it. Go ahead, Tom.
Oh yeah, well, I was just wondering, could that potentially piggyback on the trusted types, or is that just a security thing? I haven't really looked into it at all. But
yeah, trusted types it's completely different beast. Trusted types are essentially a smart wrappers around values. So think of it as a string that is wrapped into this special shell that tells the browser if this string is safe to be used in JavaScript context or HTML context or CSS context or very many different situations. But ultimately, it's still a string. It's this wrapper around the string value. Because the challenge we have today is if you try to inner HTML, you try to use inner HTML in your application today, all you do is you just take a DOM element and you assign a string to inner HTML. And by then, browser doesn't know where this string came from. Did it come from some safe, audited database, or did it come from user input? And there are many cases when you want to absolutely just take the raw string and assign it to inner HTML. But in most cases, you don't. And there is no way for the browser to distinguish. So what trusted types give you is this ability to like bless strings and say, this string is okay to be used in inner HTML situations. And then you just take that string, you assign it to inner HTML. And if you have the trusted type CSP policy turned on, then the browser will be like, yeah, this is a safe string. But if you just take a random string that is not blessed for this kind of use and try to assign it to inner HTML, the browser will reject it. So
you should not get a new job. You should just stay and teach us all day.
Well, I mean, we can do this more often.
We should. I think Oye had a question too.
Yeah, what's the question? And I see some questions in chat, so maybe.
Yeah, that's Oye.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Is there a new browser proposal that is there for the HTML? How is it called? HTML cleanup stuff?
So is this Oye's question or is it your question? I just want to make
sure.
No,
that's my question.
Oh.
That's not Oye. Oye was too slow.
Oh,
Sander just jumped right in there. Sorry, Oye. You got to be faster than Sander, man.
Oh. Okay, we'll come back to Oye right after this. There have been attempts to clean up HTML standard, and none of them, well, they have been kind of happening. And in a way, trusted types is a way to clean up DOM APIs. So not HTML, but DOM APIs in a mostly backwards compatible way, because it's opt-in and it's a policy that you can control. So that is one way of doing that. In the ECMAScript, we have strict type, use strict, the strict mode, which is now the default if you use ES modules. ES modules actually use strict by default without you actually type in it. So that you see all of these improvements already happening in the web platform, where we recognize that some mistakes have been done in the past, and there will always be mistakes. Even like APIs that have been designed this year, they will have mistakes that we'll regret next year or 5 years from now, and there will be strict mode that will remove them. but that is okay, because sometimes you need to make mistake in order to make progress. It's only if you stop making progress that you stop making mistakes.
I feel like it's always
So-
good to look back at your own at your own work and cringe, because that means that you've
Oh my
grown
God.
since then.
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, there are attempts to do this. There have been more bolder moves to clean up stuff, and to my knowledge, all of them failed. I cannot think of one big change that succeeded. Just think about XHTML. Like, that was supposed to be HTML that makes sense and it's fully toolable and everything's going to be awesome and everything's going
I
to be
think
strict.
that was the most stupid idea in a long while.
Well, you think that now, but back then that
I
was
thought
not.
it too.
So far.
Well, so maybe you should join standards committees. And I'm sure that even at the time people were opposed to XHTML,
Yeah.
but it sounded generally as a good idea or something worth trying. So yeah, look at Dart. Dart was supposed to fix JavaScript forever, and it didn't quite work out that way. Dart as a language is actually a fine language. It's fine. Just don't try to load it in the browser. That's not a good idea. Unless you have
No.
a native virtual machine for Dart, which would require that all of the major vendors will implement it. And that's a huge undertaking, and I just don't see that happening.
No, that won't be happening. Also, Dart has had a couple of strange things in there, and I asked the guy about it, and he says, yes, that is because otherwise Java developers wouldn't understand it. I said, you're creating a new language. Get rid of the strange stuff.
Yeah.
Oh well.
I mean, TypeScript has some weird stuff. Every single
language has
API,
strange
every
stuff.
single language has some weird stuff. So
What do you think about WebAssembly?
I think WebAssembly is awesome and will change how we think about building applications, but I don't think that it will replace JavaScript or TypeScript, primarily because WebAssembly is great at running heavy workloads in a browser, but so for example, if you want cryptography or if you want heavy-duty 3D rendering, whatever, some kind of engine, or if you have a lot of legacy code that you want to run in the browser, all of those use cases are amazing for WebAssembly. But if you just want to quickly render something on a screen, you need something lightweight, and WebAssembly is not lightweight. So you cannot afford to download 500K or several megabytes of WebAssembly code in order to print whatever, to-do MVC list. That is just not going to fly. But you can absolutely use TypeScript or JavaScript and HTML to render to-do MVC, and then lazy load WebAssembly code that will help you encrypt or whatever you want, like something heavy duty that you need to do in addition to rendering. Absolutely use WebAssembly for that, especially if you have legacy code that already does it, or even if it's not legacy, if it's like code you built for Android or something else, and you want to reuse it in the browser, absolutely transpile it to WebAssembly and reuse it. Just don't use it for rendering UI.
Okay, those very specific CPU intensive tasks or GPU intensive tasks. I know Figma uses it, and that's one reason why it's so fast.
Yeah, Figma uses it in an extreme way, but I think Figma is also a very specific use case that is not a typical website or web UI. One of the challenges with WebAssembly is that if you want your application to be indexed or accessible, then you have to go do crazy things in addition to WebAssembly to make that happen. And for most companies or agencies or even enterprises, it's not cost effective to save or get some benefits of WebAssembly, but then have to spend dozens of engineering years to make the application accessible and indexable and all of that stuff performant. Figma can do it because they have amazing engineering team and they have very specific use case where it makes sense, but not everybody's Figma.
Mm.
And if you want to check out WebAssembly, I convinced Dominic, because Dominic Elm was talking about WebAssembly and totally nerding out on how cool it was. And so I convinced him to come and do like a super simple hello world, we've never seen it before kind of a demo. And I just put a link in the chat if you want to see that. And I also put it to our YouTube channel. Igor, Oye might
let's go to
be
Oye.
multitasking, but his question was about your tweet about internet speed. He said, with the speed at which it's spreading, is it a possibility that there would be a shift from our focus on lighter bundle sizes to reduce latency to other parts like user experience?
Yes. So this is, I assume that this is referring to the 5G tweet that I posted
Probably, yes.
yesterday. So yesterday I posted this tweet where I measured the network performance of 5G network in Cupertino. And the results I got back was something like 2.4 gigabits per second downstream speed and 50 megabits per second upstream and 9 millisecond latency, which is crazy high. I don't know what is your internet connection at home, but this is like 10x faster than what I have at home in California. And I have business level internet at home, which is not something that most people have. So I was just blown away. And I definitely see this as something that will change how we architect applications for web, but also native applications. But my focus has always been on the web. And the main enabler of the change is not so much the bandwidth change, but the latency. Today, the latency, especially for mobile devices, can be measured in hundreds of milliseconds. If you are in Silicon Valley, it's probably 30 to 50 milliseconds. With 5G networks, we'll have single-digit millisecond latency, which means if you have an application and the application needs to talk to the server is single-digit milliseconds away from returning the response back to you, plus whatever the execution on the server. So you can see how that could allow us to shift a lot of the stuff from the client side back to the server. And we've seen this shift happen many times in the past. Back in 2009, when AngularJS was just getting started, we started to see this. Well, we didn't really see it. It just happened. And we were like, wow, this was so, like, timing was just perfect. But there was this shift that was happening from moving from the server side to the client side. So prior to 2009, everything was done on the server. So you would have these heavy stacks, .NET, Java, PHP, that would just spit strings of HTML to the browser, and the browser would just render them. The client side was very dumb, very lightweight. At best, you had jQuery to do a little bit of DOM manipulation to make things more interactive. Then the Rails came along, and Ajax became a little more accessible. But eventually, that was just this transition to the client side. And eventually, AngularJS, Backbone, and Knockout, and many other solutions, Ember, moved a lot of the workloads that happened traditionally on the server to the client. And we did all of the rendering on the client, all of the a lot of the validation of data happened both client side and server side, hopefully, because if you do validation of data only on the client side, you're kind of screwed. But you can see how that shift happened. So we just pushed everything to the client. And the reason for that was it became accessible, and the responsiveness was so much better. So we were able to build much richer UIs that were much more responsive. Because going to the server,
there is another reason that we moved everything to the client, because you have to pay for server CPU cycles. Client CPU cycles are free.
Yes and no. I can tell you that in many cases, companies would be happy to pay for the server hosting because it's such an insignificant amount. Not all the time, but depends on the use case. Often it is insignificant. There is one more thing that we didn't talk about, which is development productivity or developer productivity. The edit refresh cycle with client-side stacks was so much faster than anything else available on the server back then. Maybe except for PHP, which was possible, but then you had to build your PHP server and just deal with that, which was a nightmare.
I did build custom servers back in that days, but yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, long story short, there was this transition around 2009 from the server side to the client side. Around 2015, we realized, well, this is good, but we need all these previews. We need the social media previews. We need to make our websites accessible, and we need to make our applications indexable. So we started thinking, okay, maybe this server-side rendering should be a thing. So you saw this like pre-render and server-side rendering things in Angular and React and Vue and many others. But it was just like this middle step. And what I see is with these networks getting better and better and latency getting better, we can actually move things back to the server without impacting the user experience. And the benefit of that is we can stop thinking as much about how much JavaScript we are loading on the client side. Because if the server is so easy to reach, if you're dealing with I don't know, encryption or something that needs a lot of JavaScript to get done, you can just do it on the server side because the server is so close. At least for the initial rendering, you can now, the frameworks have gotten so much better at doing progressive hydration or hydration in general, so you can render things on the server, hydrate them on the client, and then either take over on the client side, so from there on, you render everything on the client side, or you have this hybrid model where you still go to the server, and the server still helps you render parts of the new UI. And I think there will be more and more of this happening in the future, especially as the networks are getting better, more reliable, latency is dropping, and we see 5G deployments are just happening all the time, all over the world, and it will be a big equalizer and across the world, because 5G is a global rollout. So it's, of course, Silicon Valley and some big metropolitan areas will have it first, but eventually it's the networks are going to improve everywhere, and it's going to be a big change.
Yeah, we have 5G over here for almost a year, I think.
Yeah, but even today, like in Silicon Valley, we have 5G, but it's still limited. It's still not what it will be once it's fully rolled out.
What did you say the speed was there for 5G?
2.4 gigabits was downstream on my iPhone. So I was just standing in Cupertino, I ran the test, and 2.4 gigabits downstream, and I think 54 megabits upstream, if I recall correctly.
That's really good. I just checked my 5G. It's 85 megabits.
Yeah.
Y'all are just showing off now.
My Wi-Fi is 25 though. It's like crazy low, and I'm in like a city center.
Yeah, and what I see is soon, it's just starting, but soon it's going to be very common that all the wired connections at home will be replaced by 5G gateways. So instead of you bringing fiber or cable to your house, you will just have 5G because it's going to be so much faster than cable connection, which is just crazy.
Yeah, no, it makes sense. Like exactly what I was saying. Like my 5G is like a few times faster than my Wi-Fi, you know. And even when we get fiber here, it'll only be 1,000 megabits per second. So by then 5G might be more than that, you know.
Yeah. So cool. And then with Starlink, you know, you'll have global connectivity anywhere, even in rural areas. So even rural areas will have very good internet connection, which is going to help really just change the mindset about internet availability and the speeds. We will absolutely still need to think about offline, offline problems will not go away because you have tunnels, you have underground stations and whatnot. So offline will be something that we'll need to think about. But with these networks getting better, I think the way I'm starting to think about this is that we need to think about compute as something that is portable. So if you need, by compute, I mean ability to execute either business logic or rendering, and it should be portable between the server and client. So depending on what is the status of the network, is the network connection good or are you offline? It either happens on the client side or it happens on the server side, and it should be transparent to the user. User shouldn't care. And it should be also transparent to the developer, because ideally the frameworks would just take care of this for you. So you just build the application and it executes either on the server or the client, depending on what the network conditions are. I think we have a question.
That's Rob.
Rob.
Hey Igor, I wrote the question there on the chat. Basically, I heard and I have read a lot about people talking about 5G, the dangers of 5G, how it affects the body.
Mm-hmm.
And now you are saying that, we're going to go to 5G.
Mm-hmm.
So it's an inevitable fact that we're going to go to 5G. Mm-hmm. So what is your take on that? Do you value speed over health, or you think that there is no danger in the 5G spectrum?
I absolutely value health over speed, and I'm not aware of any reliable scientific paper that would prove the dangers of 5G. If anything, we have lots of scientific evidence available to us that tells us that what we are doing today with whatever, like microwaves or
right.
things,
Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm.
like those are the things
Plastic.
that we should. Plastic, absolutely. Plastic,
Mm-hmm.
fast
4G.
food. 4G, I don't know.
But no, really, 4G is more dangerous than 5G.
Could be.
Is it?
Yeah.
So I think it's very easy for people to get scared about the unknown, whether it's vaccine or 5G or whatever it is. But we are not scared of things that are surrounding us, that are actively harming us. And I think we always should look at things in this bigger perspective. And I'm not saying that 5G is completely safe. We don't know, and we won't know for many years. But right now, I'm not aware of any scientific paper or any scientific evidence of it being more harmful than anything that is surrounding us today.
Do you guys do those kinds of research, I guess, at Google, or this is just a personal research?
So I cannot speak for Google. Even while I was at Google, I couldn't speak for Google. And I do know that Google definitely cares about these kind of things, and there's a lot of research being funded to understand the pros and cons of different things, whether it's 5G or just focus time, like notifications. How are notifications harmful? I would actually claim, and this is like completely biased and not scientifically proven bet, that notifications on your phone, the default setting for notifications, is more harmful than 5G, because they just constantly bombard you with stupid stuff and distract you from your life.
I really had a hard time when I started Angular Nation, because a lot of people talk to me on Angular Nation. A lot of people just come in and they get, because I'm, everybody knows me. So they all come and talk to me, and I get a lot of direct messages, private messages, and people are nice and they just have questions, but it's very distracting because I want to answer, because I love you guys and I always want to answer, but it's hard because I'm doing this. Then I have to go meditate for a while and clear my head, because it's all these little things all the time. Which is like what Igor's saying about the notifications. It is very distracting.
Yeah.
Anna, what is Tristan Harris? Who's Tristan Harris?
I think it's like Tristan Harris. It's kind of a different name, but he is or used to be a Google design ethicist. I don't even know how to say it, but it's like somebody who applies ethics to design at Google, and he is now I'm looking up, the co-founder of the Center for Humane Technology. He's got, I think, a viral TED Talk, which is fantastic, talking about how we spend our time on the phone and all of these companies that are competing for time in the attention economy, and how Netflix is like competing with people's own sleep. They're trying to like take away time from sleep. And Tristan Harris, like he is advocating in particular. He showed an example in one of his TED Talks where he was saying that with notifications, you can kind of like you should be able to like set your status, like I'm in Zen mode right now or whatever, so I won't be receiving notifications, and it'll put them in a queue for when you're ready to accept those notifications, which is a nice little design hack that kind of considers the biological and mental health of the individual using it. It's quite nice. Yeah.
I have a phone that has like a little button that makes it totally silent. That button is on more than it is off.
Yeah, sometimes we're trying to get a hold of Sonder, and then he won't answer it, so we have to go to his wife. Samantha said one time Sonder didn't show up. She's like, "We're gonna go to Sonder's house if we need." She came and she's like, "Mom, we have to go to Sonder's house. He's not answering." I was like, "Whoa, Samantha, be careful."
Yeah, but so sounds. Go ahead, Rob.
No, I was gonna say that we have you can schedule do not disturb also on the Android phone.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was losing so much time on notifications and stuff like that. I basically disabled it everywhere, and I put in a couple of points in my day where I'm checking those, and I'm not getting a notification for this. So if I'm busy with something, I won't see any notification. So if I'm not reaching out to you when you reached out to me, you know why? I didn't see the notification.
Yeah, I think it's definitely gotten better recently. I think these principles are being pulled in. Like I know with the new version of iOS, you can have like your work mode, and it'll only show your work apps, and then afterwards you could have like personal mode where it's only your personal apps, and then you can have it set up so that when it's coming to bedtime, it'll just like turn all the notifications off. It's definitely getting better. Or like YouTube pops up automatically to tell you to go to bed, like stop watching. So
yeah, it is getting better, and I can tell you that it's a big fight because there's just so much money involved in all of this. Like every notification can result in conversion that results in money, and people just want to bombard you with those notifications. Like business owners, they want to bombard you with the notifications because that's how they make money. And they don't care about often don't care about your health and your mental state. But just take YouTube or Netflix as an example. By default, they will just keep on showing you a next thing and next thing and watch next and whatever. Why is that the default? Who wants that? They're just taking advantage of this human weakness to be like, oh, okay, I have to take an action to stop. And that is more difficult and more energy intensive than just sitting and watching more. It shouldn't be. Like on all of my devices, I have this autoplay disabled because it should be my decision. I need to make an effort to actually watch more. I don't want somebody else to decide that for me.
It's hard when it's against their business model, isn't it? That's kind of capitalism works unless the users want it,
But make it so that users want it. Create quality content, and then people will dedicate 1 hour of their life every day to watch whatever educational or entertaining content that is worth the time. Don't force feed people with garbage.
Speaking of which, you guys just reminded me, I created a channel the other day and I didn't tell anybody and I didn't post it. I think it was like a comment or something. There's a brand new channel called Our Happy Place in Angular Nation, and it's just there for positive, good things. So if you ever have a bad day, you need to go in there and find some happy stuff. If you have anything heartwarming, you could go in there and post it, and motivational stuff. Yeah, the documentary on I think, what are you talking about? I was just thinking about that too when you guys were talking about what's it called? You guys know what I'm talking about? Social Dilemma on Netflix. Have you seen that, Igor?
Yeah.
I deleted my Facebook after watching that.
Yeah.
Good one.
It really it makes me happy, because I really struggled with that, because especially with coronavirus, there was all kinds of political stuff and human rights violations and stressful stuff going on. But like, I still want to keep up with my tech people. And it was really hard for me to go to Twitter and catch up on what's going on with Angular without seeing all this other stuff that stressed me out. And I'm very compassionate, empathetic person, so it stressed me out a lot. And at least Angular Nation is like, it's just tech. And at least and not that I don't care about the other stuff still, and I keep up with it, but I at least want to just have a place that's like quiet, peaceful, happy place. So speaking of a quiet, peaceful, happy place, you guys, I never want to end this party, because I love you guys and this is really fun and I could hang out all day, but I also need to be respectful of our guests' time. I was going to say Igor probably has to get back to work, but Igor's unemployed. So
that's not
but
true.
I'm sure he's still...
That is not. I actually started my new adventure a couple of weeks ago, and
so you didn't have a break in between?
No, because I'm just so excited to start the next thing, and I will tell everybody soon. I tried to write the blog post like discussing, because I just want to like put my words down and just explain what I'm doing next. And
that's okay. Take your time.
This
Sorry,
week,
Ronan, go ahead.
New framework, Igor.js.
You know what?
Can you give us a hint, Igor?
So we talked a lot about the 5G, and I can tell you that is definitely the area that I've been thinking about a lot. So how to take advantage of that and how to solve many of the big problems we have today is all included. How to help the web and how to bring the community together, and maybe even how to bridge some of the existing communities. We'll see how that goes. So, but my goal was to write a blog post about all of this week, and I completely failed, because after 2 years of coronavirus and COVID, I finally made it to Slovakia to visit my family, and I've been just distracted with talking to everybody and catching up with everybody and stuffing myself silly with good food. So I didn't get to it.
That's okay. I'm sorry. That's such a good excuse, though.
But it's coming soon. It's coming soon.
How could you put your family before us?
I know.
Igor, come on.
Yeah.
Well, we will. So probably once because I know there's going to be a blog post at some point. And I just think I speak for all of us when I say we're probably going to have questions, and we're going to want to see, if you have something, like we always want to see demos. We always want to see what you're working on. So you just have to come back, Igor, when you have time.
I'm happy to. If you have me, I'll come back. So as soon as I publish my blog, how about this? I publish my blog, and whenever that is, I don't know when. Maybe this week. Hopefully not later than next week. We'll figure out how to get together, and I'll come back.
Yeah, we'll just put you back on the calendar, and we'll have, because I'm sure once the blog post goes out, we're going to have all new questions for you. And also, as always, if you can show, when you get there, if you have something that you can show us, maybe, I don't know, because you haven't started, because you just started. So
I have a few prototypes. I just don't know if they are good enough to be shared yet.
Well, that's the great thing about Angular Nation. We're very cozy. And you can you don't have to, it doesn't have to be perfect. You could just call it a beta.
Perfectly imperfect?
Yes, perfectly imperfect.
Okay, we'll see. But yeah, I'll be back. How about that?
Thank you so much. It's always good to see you. Thank you for stopping by, and absolutely we will see you again soon. And before we stop the recording, you guys know the drill. Will you come off mute and help me thank our guest?
Thanks, Igor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Igor.
Thanks, Igor.
Thanks, Igor.
You're welcome.
Stay safe.
Thank you.
Great to see you, Igor.
Looking
Come back
forward to the
soon and
blog
often.
post.
Thank you. Sounds
Bye,
good.
everybody.
Bye.
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 Bye.